To order. You'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you give me a roll call, City?
Counselor Hughes. Counselor McElroy.
Here.
Oh, she's on. Thank you. Counselor Metcalf.
Here.
Counselor Prokop.
Here.
Counselor Strobel. Counselor Tenbush.
Here.
Mayor Drinkwine.
Here. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we are at the first citizen and community group comment. I have two in front of me, so I will read off the names. First one, I have Connie Redmond speaking on behalf of the chamber. Thank you.
Good evening. Just a real quick update on what's been going on with the chamber. The Visit Estacade and the chamber attended the year-end industry update with Clackamas County Tourism. This was a meeting where they engaged in showcasing research, survey finding, plans, opportunities, and networking. The Visit Estacade Chamber were also represented at the Fungus Festival. Don't judge. And there was close to 400 people that came to that festival. And while there, they were right next to Oregon State Parks and the Forest Service. And while there, they had 8 national journalists stop by. One was from Chicago. They had heard about the event and they wanted to stop by, so they did. And that was also something that was arranged by the Hood Gorge Destination Marketing Organization. The chamber is continuing to host Chamber Connects events. We just did Julie Cooper Design on Broadway. And the next two, one is going to be the Spiral Gallery and one will be Feral Fungi. Say that 3 times. They're located in the industrial campus. And during the Fungus Festival, they were there and they came up and talked to Christina and Nancy and you know, they talked about how they could help network their business and they joined. So we will be having a chamber event there. Go to their website. They've got a lot of stuff. Who knew we had a fungi business in town? The chamber staff was at the weekend events for the veterans, the breakfast and the parade. They also went to several craft fairs in town. We are fully functioning remotely. Nancy worked with Reliance Connect, so all the phone calls to the chamber automatically get sent to her phone. The chamber highlighted women-owned and small businesses this past month. And now we're into the Shop Small season in which we partner with American Express and Pamplin Media. And we also have a chamber, Hughes Family Farm as a U-cut. So if you're looking for a tree, you know, go there to them. They're up on Kemp Road. What else? We're going to be starting to promote the Shop Small, Shop Local. And I encourage all of you, we have wonderful stores here. There's good places to get gifts. So I encourage you all to shop local. That would be appreciated. And that's all I have.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Connie. Any questions for Connie? No, we appreciate the update. And next on my list, I have Tom. You're up. I'm not even going to try the last name. I screw it up every time. Yeah, that's right, McEnany.
Okay, I have nothing scripted, all coming from inside here. A lot of it is grave concern about what is going on in the world and the behavior of our young people across this country, taking sides with not the right people in my mind. And I would hope that everybody would keep in mind that there has been a lot of bad people be let into this country that we have no idea where they're at, what they're up to, or what their intentions are. So that said, this community has already shown its iron twice right outside these walls, and they will stand up again. But I implore this body to instill upon the citizens of this community, safety and security are high on your priority list. Because if you think that Sleepy Little Estacada would be overlooked for any kind of attack, let me remind you, right up the road, you have North Fork Dam. Right here, you have River Mill Dam. Already, there has been threats to those dams in the past. I would suggest that everybody keep in mind that this community needs to hear from everybody that safety is a big concern. And even from the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department, it took, I don't know how many days to hear about what this shooting was all about. And I get that they had to keep names out of, but they could have said, okay, ongoing investigation, this is what's happened, be aware. Those kind of communications are huge. So that said, please communicate to this community that you are keeping that in mind.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I don't have any more in front of me at this time, but if you'd like to put one in on our second round. Oh, we've got 4 online? Okay, good. Oh, it's 7. Well, there you go.
This has been happening in a lot of cities. This is a organized effort. It's all, unfortunately, I've heard a lot worse. So,
So
Too
unless
bad.
there's nobody else that signed up ahead of time, nobody else. Okay, so I think we'll end the public comment time
Alright.
and go on to city business, if that's all right, Mayor.
All right, yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you. All right, we're moving along to the consent agenda. I'd like to do something here. I don't know if you'd be okay with it, but I'm gonna run it by you. The traffic safety has recommendations for their positions. And I feel confident that they know what they need in the traffic safety. I'd like to move that up to the consent agenda where the other group is already on there with their recommendation. I think they know what they need best in their groups, and I think that's a better line of communication with them, is that we understand what they need, and we're trying to be fair in how we choose the people. So this is the new way I've been handling it lately with their recommendations. I'm going with that. And I think we all probably be on the same page with that. We've all talked to these people. I don't know, Mike, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I'd be okay with moving it up.
Okay.
And with the
Jonathan?
consent agenda.
I'm good with that.
Sure.
So the approval of the consent agenda then would appoint the 2 that were recommended by.
By the traffic
by the
safety.
Traffic Safety Committee. Okay.
Okay. So we all are in agreement on that. So reading that from the consent agenda, do I have a motion on the floor?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. Moving right along, we are at department and committee reports. So have any of you met with your groups, or, and you have something to say? I'll start off with you, Heidi.
The DEIC met, they got their results from the survey that was online, and it was really fruitful. About a quarter of the people in general hadn't heard of a lot of the committees. So it's really exciting, and it really gives them a path forward to help include everybody in Estacada.
All right.
And I missed my committee meeting, but I got an update from Jim before the meeting today, and some of the key points were that the the crosswalks, I did see them torching the old crosswalks up by Clackamas River, and they've got the new thermoplastics down there for the new crosswalks. 2 new signals that were put in, and then the Traffic and Public Safety Committee made 2 appointments, or recommendations for appointments that just passed in the consent agenda.
Great. Jerry.
Yeah, I missed the Arts Commission meeting, but I made the Downtown Estacada Commission meeting. They have big plans for the tree lighting ceremony to be more than just out here. They're gonna include all of downtown. Big plans. They'll have pamphlets and stuff to go around letting people know. They're putting it in the paper, they're putting it out on social media of what's going on, and unfortunately no hayride, which for insurance reasons I understand, but yeah, that's big plans for the tree lighting ceremony. It's going to be good.
That's on December 1st, right?
Yeah, December 1st.
Okay.
First Friday.
First, right. All right. All right, Charity, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry I can't be there in person tonight, you guys. I'm feeling a little under the weather. Parks and Rec met, and they are still kind of working through what they would like to see with the SDCs in the future. They're still in conversations with that, and will be coming back to the city with their information in the next month or so. The Questacada website, which is an app, had its soft launch at the Trick or Trot. And so there'll be more information coming out about that I'll share with you guys probably next meeting or the meeting after. And they're in the works with the candy cane hunt this year. They did that last year and had success. So they're going to be doing that again. And then school board met November 8th, and they're still doing a lot of community outreach in regards to the possibility of putting out that school bond. So I want to let community members know that November 30th will be the school will be hosting a giant town hall meeting at the middle school auditorium. And they basically just, answering any questions. They're also going to be running a live feed, so they'll be live streaming it if folks can't make it in person. They are they just got another portable over at Rivermill, and they had to kind of quick this year get an emergency 5th grade class going. And so they brought in a new portable, and they're hoping to get that portable up and running after Christmas. One major thing happened. They removed that 160-year-old oak tree that was in front of the high school. I know there was some, community members that may be upset about that. But the tree was inspected by 3 local arborists, and it was not vital. So it needed to be removed. Also, it was a hazard. Some limbs had come down, and so there was some safety issues there. But they are looking to preserve a portion of that tree. Maybe if the bond passes, or if they do put forth the bond, maybe using some of that wood in the new building, or some way to kind of like respect that old tree and commemorate that memory. So the school also talked about some challenges. I'm sorry, this is a really long report when I sound so terrible. There's just kind of been some challenges that the school district's been working through with the students, just sort of post-pandemic challenges. There's a lot of kind of emotional maturity. For example, Superintendent Carpenter was saying that sophomores act like 8th graders, and 8th graders are acting like 6th graders. And there's just a lot of things that the school district's having to work through as far as, kind of what the pandemic brought forth. And they're really, they've put some things in motion that'll hopefully help them. They've looked into hiring they've hired 8 new 8 new adults to help with recess times and things like that, because the paraeducators were getting pulled out of the classrooms to help with recess. So they're looking at, different opportunities to help the situation. And so if, just kind of be thinking about your teachers and a school board and just any school member when dropping off your kiddos that yeah, things are a little challenging for them right now and they're working through it. Um and one more thing I wanted to mention was that I think they're going to, oh, the school district's going to be putting out some financial explainer videos basically explaining where the money goes. So it'll just explain to parents and taxpayers, where do the taxpayers go, what goes to what, etc. So they're going to launch those videos, and that will be some good information for our community members, because we all like to know how our money's being spent. So that's all I have for you.
Yay, thank you, Charity, and get better, huh? So
Thanks.
that is the end of our counselor updates. So we will go to the city manager's report.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of things tonight. Thanks for bringing up Main Street. And thank you to the Traffic and Public Safety Committee for their work, making recommendations on ways to make things safer for pedestrians, especially in our school zones. And I just wanted to highlight, in addition to having a nice paved street without a bunch of dips and potholes in it, they did do the crosswalks are improved, and Public Works is installing the flashing pedestrian signals. They've got one of them already installed at Clackamas River, and then they do have a second one that'll go in up at the middle school. And then there's a couple other intersections that were also prioritized by the Traffic and Public Safety Committee. So we'll be working on getting those also with some safety improvements. But I'm glad that we're making headway on Main Street for right now. And then I wanted to just comment on a public comment that was brought up at the last meeting about the request to extend the public comment time. And I wanted to acknowledge that there was at least one person that talked about that, and then we had a call about it this week. But in the council rules, which was just updated about a little less than 3 years ago, the council allows 3 minutes for each public member addressing the council, and there's a maximum of 30 minutes for each citizen comment period. And so you do have a comment period at the beginning and a comment period at the end. So the council is allowing for an hour of public comment. And so if you want to discuss it more, we can do that. We could review the council rules. But I didn't put it on the agenda because at this point we haven't ever run out of time for public comment. And I know one time we had a large number of people who did want to speak, and the mayor moved the second public comment time to the beginning so that everybody could have a chance to say what they wanted to say before the council discussed the topic. And I think that worked out well. So I didn't see any particular need to readdress this in the council rules, but if you'd like to, we can definitely do it.
I like the idea of if there's less people, if it's not going to keep the half hour and half hour, if it needs to be moved to the front, move it to the front. But if there's only 3 people that are here to speak and someone wants to speak longer than 3 minutes and it doesn't run over the 30-minute period overall, that you could even divide it. If there's 5 public comments and there's 30 minutes, you could give them a max of 6 minutes. A lot of people are going to be hard pressed to speak about something for 6 minutes. It's a lot longer than you think it is, but I'd be open to looking at giving people longer to speak, as if there's not so many people that want to speak, that's going to go over the total of an hour.
Definitely. And go ahead.
And I checked with the county, the 3-minute stands, they have a 3-minute time limit, but they do open end the speaking part if it warrants it. So if there should be a major issue, which everybody loves to speak on, then they extend the time that they're willing to listen to, because they feel like the public needs to have an opportunity to speak on it. We may look at that too, based upon the situation, whatever we're dealing with at the time. It's kind of what you said. But that might be something we want to look at, is extending the time, not so much the time per individual who wants to speak, but the overall time.
The overall time, yes. And I believe that you could definitely do that. In fact, in the council rules, it says, a public member addressing the council shall be limited to 3 minutes unless further time is granted by the presiding officer. So that does give you the flexibility if one of you wanted to ask the mayor, can we let this person speak longer? If you want to ask questions of them, a lot of times, it's difficult to take a question and answer right on the spot, or it's something you need to say, staff, will you look into this so that we can bring back an answer? And so sometimes it's not that, you don't need to discuss it that long, but if you want to, I think you definitely have the prerogative. We just have this rule set to provide some structure in the majority of cases. So,
Anybody else want to speak on that?
Oh, no.
No? Okay. All right, yeah, I think that's good. The way we
Okay.
just talked about it, I think if we have the prerogative to do that, then that gives the advantage if we need to extend
mhm,
on the
perfect.
time that they're speaking, not so much the time per individual.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All
All right.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Jonathan, go ahead.
Hey, do we have any updates on Comcast? I know I have received emails about that from, have we got anywhere with the Comcast?
Yes, they have agreed that they will, I know it's kind of a mess while they're in your yard, but they've agreed that they will, whatever is in the area, as far as infrastructure, they'll match that. So if it's underground in vaults, then that's what they're gonna match. And they did say they will go back, and if they've installed a pedestal in areas where it should have been a vault, that they'll go back and fix that. And so, that's what we are anticipating that they're doing, unless Peter knows any different.
That's what they've said. They did say that there's a shortage of vaults, and so there's a 4 to 6 week lag. So it might be a little bit more time that people will be waiting, but the good news is that they've said they'll essentially match whatever's in the neighborhood. And I've had some very candid conversations with them about, whether it makes sense for them to underground in existing neighborhoods where there isn't room in the existing conduit.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they've just generated a lot of ill will through this. They're very aware of that. And it's just been a long time since they've expanded. I mean, they've been pretty candid, and they said, it's been a long time since we've expanded into a city where everything wasn't above ground, or it wasn't a city that was being freshly built out. And so they were in real time undergrounding. And so, yeah, they've been very apologetic, but we've essentially said, okay, well, we're continue to hear from people. So we would love to see you close the circle.
Have you spoke to the HOA community manager, let them know to,
Yes, I thought he sent out an email to
I didn't
the
receive
HOA, but you
that.
didn't. Oh, you know what? You're in a different, so the HOA that we were working with was Cascadia Ridge. I believe you're in Campanella HOA. I have not been in contact with that HOA. So we can talk more about that if we need to. or I
it was
can-
more for the Cascadia Ridge.
Okay,
People more than anything.
okay,
But yeah,
yes. And I hope you got.
Yeah,
Minutes.
there was a letter sent that if you have any issues with your yard being not put back the way it was originally, then you can contact them. Yeah.
They provided a contact to the person managing the crews on the ground. So,
thank you for the
Yeah.
update.
yeah, thank you.
All right, well, that's encouraging.
I've answered my.
It came to us before during the last meeting that was
Mhm.
concerned with that. Had she gotten that message?
Yes.
It was through emails, so it should,
Should have
yeah.
got to her, yeah. And I do appreciate the president of that Cascadia Ridge HOA. He worked, it was like daily emails, me, Peter and David, talking to Comcast, and then some phone calls. And so he really did work hard to make sure along with us that we're communicating the needs of the city to Comcast. And I think they're making it happen.
And I think there are multiple open lines of communication with Comcast. So we'll all have a different direct person that we're
Yes.
communicating with. So.
All right,
Thank you.
any more
Thank you
comments?
for checking in on that, though.
Okay, we're gonna move along to council business. You're finished with your report. Is that
Mhm,
right? Okay.
yes.
On council business, we have the wastewater treatment phase 2 engineering contract with Kennedy Jenks. So I will hand that over.
Okay. And does
Please.
Elena want to say anything? She's really been project managing this. So I don't know if you want to introduce Sean. I think everybody knows Sean by now, but there's anything that you wanted to speak to, or just let Sean do his presentation.
No, I thought I'd just let Sean take it away.
Okay.
So, is this on?
Yeah, you might need to scoot it over a little bit so you can bend it down a little bit. There you go.
So I'm Sean Spargo with Kennedy Jenks Consultants, project manager on the pre-design phase for the wastewater treatment plant. This is Michael Hahn, he's the operations manager in Portland. We just had a quick presentation to kind of give council an update on where we're at and what the next steps are for the project. So to start with, if you go to the next slide, we just want to talk about project goals and then the DQ mutual agreement order. We'll touch on our final design scope. I wanted to brief the council on tours we had at wastewater treatment plants with staff. And then we'll talk a little bit about the project schedule and options for the project delivery method. If you could back up one slide. So just a recap of what we did during the pre-design phase. Where Kurt and McLeod left off was kind of a site selection that was outside of town. It had a gravity advantage and that we could eliminate some pump stations. But it was pretty difficult to site the treatment plant for a number of reasons, citizen concerns about proximity to their property, zoning issues with the land that was identified, potential flooding concerns with the property that we were looking at. So we kind of pulled back and said, well, what makes the most sense here? And so we evaluated 4 or 5 locations and decided that eliminating a bunch of gravity pipe from the project would be a cost savings if we could keep the plant close to its current location. And so what we selected was a site that was within Portal Park, is already owned by the city, so there's no additional cost for purchasing it. And I'll talk a little bit more about this site in a second. We submitted our pre-design report to DQ in September, which was part of the mutual agreement order. We had to have it in by September 1st. The comments were fairly minimal. I think we had 3 comments on it. One to do with UV dosing and the other 2 to do with flood concerns over the site we've selected, which we assured them is not a concern. So we're revising that report and we'll get the final back to DQ within the allotted 2 months that the mutual agreement order states we have to. Then we are currently doing a geotechnical investigation at the selected site, Portal Park. They're gonna do 5 borings and figure out what the soil properties are so that we can engineer the basins for the new wastewater plant. We expect we'll have a preliminary report in about a month or so. And then we also did a bathymetric survey for the new outfall. We talked to DQ. Since the strategy was to relocate the outfall downstream of the River Mill Dam, we wanted to check and see if the lake would be an option, I think, for the outfall. And they said yes, as long as it's deeper. And we consulted with our Mixon, who's an expert in mixing zone studies, and they said that the numbers calculate out and it looks like it's a viable alternative. So DQ is on board. We can leave the outfall where it's at. We don't have to pipe it downstream of the dam, which I think will result in project savings. Next slide. So just to kind of recap the project goals, we want to maintain compliance with your discharge permit. We want to replace the aging infrastructure at the plant. We're updating the technology to give you better treatment, cleaner effluent. We're doing everything we can to comply with the mutual agreement order. Then there's a couple of dates that we need to keep in mind. We need to have a final design to them by May 1st, which is about 6-7 months from now. And then the new wastewater treatment plant needs to be commissioned by September 1st, 2026, which is a very tight timeline. Our goal is to repurpose or redevelop that former wastewater treatment plant site, to return it to parkland, if you will.
we want to generate a high quality effluent. The MBR effluent is recycled water, essentially. It's the Class A effluent, and we're going to recharge the river, and hopefully that allows us to withdraw more raw water for treatment for drinking water. And we've also improving the mixing zone by relocating the outfall, and then with Elena's help, we're hoping to secure grants and low interest loans for the project so that we can reduce the impact on ratepayers. Next slide. So we went on a couple tours on different days with the operators, and then with Melanie and Elena, we went to 2 different treatment plants. Dundee, Oregon, which is a Kennedy Jenks designed MBR treatment plants, very similar in a lot of regards to what we're proposing for Estacada. We got to see all the improvements there. They have a Kubota flat plate MBR, which we recommended in the pre-design report for Estacada. They have end vessel UV, which is in the photo on the left there. It takes the place of a traditional chlorine contact basin. There's no chemical usage associated with that. We will have a small chlorine dosing system for recycled water to use within the plant. Just as a precaution, it keeps the lines from fouling and spray headers from fouling. And then on the right, we went to Woodland, Washington. They operate an aerobic digester. So all the solids from the plant are further digested to kind of reduce mass, reduces the amount of liquid waste you would have to dispose of. And they also operate a dewatering press and FKC screw press, which is similar to what the city has installed. And then we will be moving that screw press to the new plant. So both tours I thought went pretty well, and we got to see some things that we'll incorporate into this design. On a second day, we went to Tri-Cities wastewater plant. They have a large scale MBR. It serves, a good portion of Clackamas County. We were able to see the MBR and talk to the operators about preferences and not preferences. And so that was a valuable tour also. Michael and Heidi were able to join us on that one. Moving on to project delivery method. I realize I'm seeing it on the screen, it's kind of small, but this is comparing 2 different project deliveries. On the top is a traditional design bid build, where we would take the project as the engineer to final design. We'd put it out on the street advertise it for bid. Contractors would bid on it. You'd accept the lowest bidder and proceed to construction. The 2 vertical green lines are when we need to submit the design to DEQ. And the one on the right is when we need to have the plant commissioned by. The row on the bottom is CMGC, which is an alternative delivery. Contract manager, general contractor. Am I saying that right? It does a couple things. It gets the contractor on board earlier in the process. So they would be on board during the 30% design. There are some benefits to that delivery method. They'll have a greater role in the design effort. They can do value engineering sessions as we move along and update and basically give us real-time costs as we move through, so there's no surprises when we get to the end. As we design the plant, they can take portions of that work and start constructing it early. And they can also procure long lead items like MCCs and switchgear, generators, other things that are seeing lead times of a year or longer at this point. Whereas if we went with a traditional design bid build, we'd have to procure those items after the contractor's on board. And as you can see, we're predicting that the commissioning of the treatment plant wouldn't occur in time to meet the deadline in the MAO. So we would need a request from DEQ an extension in order to hit that date with a traditional design bid build. Whereas with the CMGC, we believe we can get it done. We're showing a couple months of float there. With the CMGC delivery method, you go through a process called finding of fact, which excludes it from, it's taking exception to the public bidding requirements in Oregon. And it's prescriptive, it's described in ORS. We go through an evaluation and list the reasons why we're going CMGC and determining whether or not it excludes competition. And it's a fairly straightforward process. A lot of municipalities have gone that route when they want to use alternative delivery. So we're advocating that we do the project CMGC to hit the deadline. Let me talk a little bit about the scope and we can come back to this if there are questions on it. So next slide. So what do we need to do for final design? We have a partial 30% design that we submitted with the pre-design report. We need to get other major disciplines that we didn't have time to focus on the design and the short window that we had to submit the pre-design report involved. And those include structural and electrical. So that we need to get those disciplines up to 30%, and then we can, there are 3 other design submittals, the 60/90 and the final design. So traditionally, the customer or the client would have input at each one of those design stages. We'd deliver a set of drawings and specifications and a cost estimate and compare our progress to a schedule. We need to finish the geotechnical investigation that I mentioned. There's some additional permitting that we need to do for the outfall and for land use permitting for siting the treatment plant. We need to do a procurement package for the membrane equipment. That's sort of a standalone package that we would put out. We would advertise it like for public bid. It would have all the requirements for the membrane in there. And since it's a major piece of equipment and it differs so much between manufacturers, we want to lock it in early so that we can design around one. If we were to leave it open bid till the end, the manufacturer's tank sizes differ, their equipment requirements differ, and so you'd be designing a lot of it past the point where you would want to. So we need to understand that early enough so that we can get enough information on paper that the contractor can get started. Then you would do a procurement for the CMGC contractor, which would be optional depending on which project delivery method you choose. And then we need value engineering sessions, which is a requirement for SRF funding. So with the CMGC, they're sort of built in. We could claim that that qualifies as a value engineering session. With traditional design bid build, we usually bring in a third party to help us with those meetings to get third party input. But either option is viable. Then next slide. So questions. This is a picture of the bathymetry that was done in the lake. It just shows different depths, and those are contours as you get further away from shore. The blue line on the right is your existing outfall. The blue line on the left or closer up the page that's more in the middle of the channel is where we're proposing to put the outfall. That was a lot. Questions on project delivery method or?
Yeah. Do you have any recent projects that went with that delivery method? And is there any, first of all, is there any financial risk to the city with that method as opposed to going to a design build with not having a firm number to deal with upfront?
With not having a firm number to deal with upfront, we haven't seen it. We did a project that was similar for the city of the Dalles. It wasn't CMGC, it was progressive design bid or design build. The contractor was Mortensen Construction. They issued a GMP based on an 80% set of drawings to the city. And I think that GMP was 12 million. And I think they came in at 12.2. So it's pretty comparable in terms of change order percentage. We felt that it wasn't any additional cost to go that route, and certainly was a schedule savings.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the procurement piece on
Use the microphone.
You probably need to turn that mic back on too. Off and on, off and then on again.
on,
There we
okay.
go.
So the CMGC procurement process, the first piece of it, this finding of fact that Sean talked about, we put out a solicitation that is competitive. It's usually qualifications based with contractor provided general conditions fee as a percentage of the work. And that's what's used to make a selection on your CMGC contractor. And then we progress the design to a certain point. Usually it's 60, sometimes it's 90, depending on what the project requires. And then at that point, the contractor assembles their guaranteed maximum price, the GMP. And they use a process called open book accounting. So all of the costs for subconsultants that they're going to use, trades, those are all open procurement packages that the contractor solicits and then you and us review. So that piece is still competitive. And then the cost checks and balances piece for self-performed work for the contractor's part that isn't sub-consulted out, that gets back-checked by our internal cost estimating team. Or in some cases, there could be a third-party cost estimate review that happens.
Thank you. I have more questions, but I'll.
Yeah,
if
for,
anybody
for,
else has
for us, we're, if we do this process, it's gonna make us apply for a one-stop sooner rather than later, so several months sooner than we would have before to look for funding and grant opportunities. So we're gonna go under contract for a loan sooner with the CMGC process, which could potentially be beneficial for us because of the way interest rates are going.
More questions over here? Mike, you know.
I have more, yeah. As part of the geotech report, are they gonna evaluate the soil samples for different seismic events? Is there the potential for, they're gonna evaluate the soil conditions to see how that would be impacted by an earthquake? And what that would look like for having the sewage treatment plant right there, close to the river?
Right, so they will determine site-specific seismic parameters that we use when we're designing the basins. They will look also for failure planes too. I mean, doing 5 borings probably won't tell you if you're on a fault line, and those are generally already predetermined, where they're located, and we're not near anyone that I'm aware of. But they will look at the rock in terms of, is there a clay lens or something where we shouldn't be finding piles because it would liquefy during an earthquake? And that's part of what they'll be checking, but they will develop the seismic parameters for us to be able to design the structures to current code requirements.
Is there any reports that you guys have been given or any data that would make you believe that there's a concern with having it that close to the river?
No.
No.
They advanced the first boring today, the one closest to the outfall pipeline, and they got only 22 feet deep because it was so tight. It was a tight formation with a lot of cobbles in it and a lot of boulders, so the drilling was really slow. I have kind of concerns on the other side about how fast we can excavate and whether it would be an additional cost to excavate there. But they're going to move to a different boring and see what it's like kind of closer to the restroom.
Any other questions? No? Okay, go ahead, move ahead.
I think that was the end of our presentation. If there are questions on our scope specifically, I can answer those, but.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, so we have two things that we're looking at. First of all, they've presented their scope for the scope of services for the next set of engineering to take us all the way through 100% and through bidding. And that they provided a not to exceed amount for that work. They're still working on the initial contract they had with us also. I think there was a couple more things left to do in that contract. So we're looking for approval of the contract to continue forward, and then your opinion or guidance that I think that the going with the CMGC process, that's what sounds like it makes the most sense to me, but I'd like you guys to weigh in, and if you feel strongly that we shouldn't go that way, definitely let us know. But if you think it sounds like that will keep us on our timeline. There's a lot of checks and balances to make sure that we're controlling costs along the way through the project. And we will have to scurry a bit with, it'll move us, it'll kind of, rather than I feel like there's this even path of work that we're heading forward, not for you guys are just working like crazy, I'm sure, but now we'll have to say, okay, instead of planning this out for the next several months, we need to do this right now. And we will jump on it and go if that's the path that you think is best. So we'd like your guidance on that. And then we'd also like to request that the contract could be approved, or if you have any questions on the scope, you could do that, ask.
Okay. Does everybody feel confident in the recommendation from the city to move forward on this and the contract? Am I seeing that all the way around the table?
On the contract for moving forward with engineering, yeah, I had one quick question.
Okay.
How soon would we have that max amount to compare it to the estimates for the design build estimates that we had before? How far along in the process? If that number came back and it was 20 million, I'm just making a number up, 20 million higher than we anticipated with a design build option. How soon in the process will we know that?
About 6 months.
So you're pretty much committed at that point, right?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have submitted our design to DEQ at that point.
And sorry, can I ask another
Yeah.
question? If we decide to go with the traditional way of engineering and then going out to bid, at what point would we need to ask DEQ for an extension? At what point would we have enough information to know when we're actually going to probably be able to complete that? Because we would need to ask for an extension on the MAO, right?
We would,
Mhm.
we would need to ask almost immediately. I think we'd want to know almost before we decided
Okay,
to go
so,
traditional design. bid
so if we're
build.
gonna go traditional, we're gonna ask DEQ if they'll negotiate that into our MAO. And if we are going to go with the CMGC, we'll just get moving on it, right? Okay. You have a preference?
Okay.
I'd like to know.
So now that you've heard that, are there any hesitation as far as, like you said, you're going in this a little bit blind here. If we go with the quick option, we may look at a lot more financial obligation than we want to. Go with the long one, we've got a more accurate timeline to look at those finance. So that's what I'm really asking here, because I think we owe that to the taxpayers. That's, when I sign on to the quick and easy, I always wonder, how much is that quick and easy going to
Mhm.
cost? And go ahead.
That's a good point. Is it gonna cost us more to go this way? I'm not really hearing that's necessarily gonna cost us more. But when we go with the traditional method, rather than doing a RFQ where we're looking at qualifications and doing a competitive process based on qualifications, then we can choose amongst these are our options, who's most qualified. And at that point, we don't look at cost, we make them control cost once we contract with them? Is that kind of right? Because the other option is.
There's a lot of different things that you can include in that selection piece. And maybe for some peace of mind, it is a rough order of cost, just to understand, not that they would be encumbered by that to deliver it, but that it's a back check of what our initial estimates are. And then you would get input from contractors who are interested to kind of provide that. Yeah, it's about what we think. We haven't seen any, of the design documents per se. But then as the design progresses, that contractors involved in the cost discussions, they can help advise on things like, okay, interest rates are going up, or long lead items. We want to make sure that we're purchasing this, that, or the next. So it is a lot more collaborative. I guess I do want to maybe comment that I haven't seen alternative delivery, which is what CMGC is. I haven't seen that result in a what we would think of as a different end cost of a hard bid cost. It may even be the opposite of that, because you have that collaboration, that ongoing kind of value engineering piece that happens throughout the project. I think speaking to kind of the competitiveness, having that contractor's fee as a percentage, and using that as a basis for selection, I think that provides that competitiveness and that kind of checks and balances that I'm hearing the cities after.
They need to submit rates and they need to submit markups as part of their procurement. So when we choose a contractor, we can use that in the evaluation, but with alternative delivery, it's almost like a constant feedback loop. We get to 30% and they said, well, you really don't need to 5 manholes over here. Why do you have 5 manholes? I'm like, oh, well, you're right. We don't. We can just straight pipe that. And so you get that constant kind of checks and balances. Are we maintaining our budget, and is what the engineer putting on paper making sense?
Okay, Peter, you had some.
Yeah, so, one of the, beyond the speed of the project, one of the main differences is that you have the contractor involved and hopefully value engineering at a much earlier point in the project versus getting to much further down in the design phase. And then instead of the contractor having an ability to ask those questions and saying, do you really need this or that? They're just bidding it based on that design. And so I think like in a perfect world, if it's working just as it should, you're minimizing costs on the front end, and then you have competitive bidding down the line because there's still companies that are, the subs are still, bidding and being managed by the contractor. And I don't think that this is a reasonable example, but DLCD staff brought it up with us. And so the most extreme example I'm aware of was Primeville, which went from like 60 million to 7.7. I don't think that we could do that. Part of the way that they did it is they had 120 acres where they were. So the state keeps bringing this up and saying, well, by the way, Primeville did. And it's like, okay, well, we had a 120 acre golf course where we could have a nice meandering, then we could do a lot of that. But there are other examples that because the contractor with the expertise is on in the front end, they can value engineer.
Okay, good, go ahead, Don.
The other alternative is when we get all the plans ready and we bid it at the end. And then we just keep our fingers crossed that the low bidder is a really good contractor. Because when you take, unless we've already said this is going to be, this company is non-responsive, we worked with them before, we won't work with them again, then they're pushed to the side. Other than that, we take low bid and you get who you get. And versus this other way, we can pick a contractor who seems to be the best fit for our project, for what we're doing, for their expertise in the matter. And then also realizing that, we're not looking for a gold-plated, we want functional, long-lasting, solid, working. We want a good plant, but we don't need it to be super fancy. We want it to be nice quality, Estacada style type of work, and we can pick a good. So that, I think that's the direction I'm leaning. Just to say, I don't know what direction you're leaning.
Jerry, did you have something like that? I did. Nope, okay. Any other add-ons to that? I think I'm comfortable in proceeding forward on the CMGC.
CMGC.
Yeah.
I'm finally getting those letters in the right order, I think.
All right,
All
so,
And then we just would need a motion.
yep, go ahead and make the
to-
motion on that.
I move to approve the engineering contract for Kennedy Jenks to perform the scope of services on a time and material basis not to exceed the amount of $3,379,296.
Okay, do we have a second on this one?
I second.
First and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes, thank you. Okay, that is all I have on the council business. So we will move ahead to the next citizen and community group comment. I have no forms in front of me. Do I have any on there? Okay. Yeah, I don't see any problem. Well, yeah, we'd
You
like
could
that.
fill it,
We
yeah,
have it
you
up-
could
yeah, you can
fill it out and then hand it to Sadie when you're done.
So my name is Jordan Winthrop. I know most of you. I just wanted to say a couple things. First thing is I just beg of you to allow there to be some sort of citizen input on the location of the sewer plant. I know that none of the citizens had any idea that this is what was going to happen. And backdating information and changing it later doesn't constitute telling the citizens of where this sewer plant was going to be located. Right now is the first time you guys have ever mentioned in public meeting that it was going to be on the Portal Park. I am the president of the Estacada Timber Festival. This will destroy the Timber Festival's chances of having a successful Timber Festival, which does bring 10,000 people into Estacada. I am on the board of directors for the Oregon Tour and Travel Alliance. We do package travel to Oregon for tour and travel through Travel Oregon. We do much of the major marketing of tourism in Oregon. And what you guys are taking away is a national scenic byway. That would be similar to destroying a national park. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen anything I have written, because I've provided much testimony, including written drawings of this. And I know that many other people have provided written testimony. So when I've heard that there was only 3, that really confused me, since I know I saw 8 specifically with my own eyes and read them before they were submitted. I'm very confused why in the verbiage, you guys are saying that it's going to be on the city maintenance lots when that was not in the plans at all. It was going to be in the park. So in the citizens' testimony, when you guys were able to tell us about where these locations were, it was always said it was going to be in the maintenance lots. No one had ever mentioned Portal Park at all. That was never, ever told to the community. We never had the input or opportunity to provide input. People who know what that park means had no opportunity to provide input at all. So I just want to let you know that that park means a lot to a lot of people, and no one that has the information that you guys need to know was ever asked. And the people that have the information need to start being asked to provide the information, so things don't get so far ahead that no one knows what's going on, because there are a lot of people that are going to be very disappointed about this park being taken away. It's our only waterfront park in the city limits. I want to promote tourism for Estacada. I don't see how that's going to happen. Right now, I am contracted by We Love Clean Rivers, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I'm doing a water map. We mapped out the whole entire waterways, and that outfall is a huge thing that people look out for. And having the outfall in the center of the river is going to be very detrimental to the scuba diving tourists that scuba dive there and look for the train wreck that's under the river in that specific area. Right now, the outfall is out to the edge of the river, and kayakers and scuba divers can avoid that. If it's in the middle of the river, that is exactly where the scuba divers are going to be scuba diving to find the train wreck that wrecked in 1936. So if you guys would like to help this town with tourism, you need to start thinking about what tourism means to this town, not how you guys use it, but how tourists use it.
We appreciate your comment.
Mayor, could I make one comment
Yeah,
about
sure.
that? Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think the city could work with the Timber Festival when it comes back around again, to help with shuttles or parking in alternate areas. And I know that it would be important to the council also, for the Timber Festival to be supported. And I think that we can, definitely, we don't want to be doing anything that's detrimental to that. And I think that we can mitigate some of the impacts that we might be causing to that. Because I think at the Portal Park, there is quite a bit of parking that gets used during the Timber Festival. And so we would want to help mitigate that in the future.
Okay, great, Mike.
What could we do to get more information out to the public about the exact location where we're proposing it to be, so that if there was feedback, we would be getting it?
What can we do to?
I mean, we did upload a picture on the website, and we could share that more, in social media channels, that specific picture, because I think our language said, near the Public Works Maintenance Shop. It didn't say in the Public Works shop. It kind of, because it's taking up a little bit of Public Works and part of Portal Park is what the layout currently has.
When I looked it up myself, I looked for that in C-Maps and I've had discussions with Jordan specifically about it. And my understanding of it was when I looked at where the shops were on the parcel that it's on, it's split up into two spaces where the existing is and the new one is. And it was, I mean, my understanding is not necessarily what everyone else understands, but I didn't take it to mean that it was the shops were going away and it was going to be limited to that area. My understanding was that it was going on that parcel that the city already owned. And that with expansion, it was eventually going to take up the whole parcel, including the Portal Park area and the Public Works building. Eventually, they're both going to be gone. It wasn't, I didn't have an idea of which was going to go first, but my understanding was that that parcel was going to be taken up in full. And that hopefully after the completion of the plant, when the old plant is decommissioned, that it may not address the national designation of the one side of it. But as far as the parking for future timber festivals, if we can deal with that in the short term, that it would expand more parking or park area on the other side of that parcel where the existing plant is.
I appreciate it, but I canceled Netflix, and now what I do is I watch city council meetings, and I've seen pretty much every city council meeting 4 or 5 times, every Park and Recs meeting, every downtown commission meeting, every arts commission meeting, multiple times for the last few years. I implore you guys to look back at these meetings and see what you guys have said yourselves, what has been stated in these meetings, and what the Park and Recs was told in these meetings, what the Arts Commission is being told in these meetings. You guys need to know what the community sees. We watch these meetings. How else are we supposed to know that the information we're being given in these meetings are not the correct information? If you guys put a new graphic up on the website, like you said, how is everybody supposed to know to look at the website and find the new graphic that's up there? There needs to be a lot more community input for huge decisions like this. This is a very, very lifelong decision for all of the citizens of Estacada, including my kids, and they're gonna look at this and be like, what were you guys thinking? This was our only waterfront property in the city limits. You guys took it away. Was there no other option?
And I gotta chime in here, Jordan, because you've put a lot of blame on the city and us up here as counselors. But I gotta tell you, we were on this a lot longer than you just now noticed. We've been talking about putting this off of Folsom Road. We talked about putting this on the other side.
We were not, we specifically asked, is it going to go on Portal Park? And they said, no.
Well, that's something I think we'll have to look at and get back to them on, if that was in that.
I can send you some,
Yeah.
I can
Okay,
send you some links about that, yeah. And we'll try to do better at communicating with the public. It's
yeah, and I'd
very
like to
important
see some of the back
know, yeah.
stuff on that. So if that does exist, I'd
And
like.
we're also working on a secondary, which would be primary, water access also. We've been working on the engineering for the water access that's closer here off of Beach Street. So we'll have some more information to present to council shortly with that, hopefully, so.
Okay,
and that
thank
would-
you.
Yeah,
All right, so we'll look into this and
Okay.
we'll find out. what
Yep,
it's-
thank you.
What my passion is, you know what my dedication is to promoting Estacada tourism. If you guys think that anything, I can't imagine not coming to me. I mean, you know where I live, you've been to my house. You could talk to me and tell me what you guys are planning, but for some reason, I don't even get replies to emails, which is odd at this point.
Well, let us get back into it and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments during this? Anybody chiming in from anywhere? No? Okay, great. We are now at the mayor and council reports and comments, and I will start off with Heidi.
I don't really have anything tonight. I just hope everybody has a good holiday.
Mike.
Thank everybody for coming out. Thanks for the feedback, Jordan, and the other public comments we had, other than a few of the ones that got shortened up there. did have an opportunity this last weekend to enjoy the Wade Creek Community Room at the library, and went through the process of reserving it, and just a lot of the parents that came to the party weren't aware that that was available. And so I think we could do a little bit more, maybe to just, I know the information's out there, but just spread the word. I know I spread the word to a bunch of people, and it's a beautiful building, and the process to go through to make it available to residents and other people that are booking, it was just amazing. Very smooth process. The checklist for cleaning it up and everything was good. It's beautiful down there. It would have been nice to enjoy it during the daytime and in the summer maybe, but it worked out really well. So I appreciate it. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks to the staff for all the work, and for Kennedy Jinks on the work on the engineering.
Thank you. Jared.
Yeah, ditto what Mike said. Thank you guys. Thanks staff for all your hard work, and thanks to all of you that came to the meeting. Appreciate you guys, and yeah, have a good holiday.
I got, one, I want to publicly thank Jim, backing up a little bit to the Halloween, the downtown walk. That was fantastic. I took my kids down there and experienced it for myself. And, it was very cool to see the community come together, one, and two, just all the different families and kids, and to really get a look at just how big this community is getting, how many young families there is. It's very, very cool. So thank you guys so much for your work and putting that on. And then also, I'd like to take a moment and say thank you to our veterans of this community. Being one myself, I deeply, deeply respect and appreciate all of you. I just want you to know, like, it isn't gone unnoticed, and there's a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot of heavy stuff right now, but thank you for your sacrifices and your service to this beautiful and great nation. And then I'd like to remind you that we are available as counselors. You can email us if you have comments, concerns. This is how you get a hold of us. This is how you get direct answers. I would like to say thank you to the people that have done that respectfully. So it's a lot better if you come and you just ask us directly than it is to lob grenades on Facebook or social media. Like, this is the way that we can build trust and lines of communication. So I appreciate your comments even tonight, Jordan, for, you know, your differences of an opinion. Like I have not.
Hey,
Well,
you check in with me and we'll check with IT next week or later this week.
either way, thank you for those that have reached out and went through the channels, and I have spoken. I do respond to emails. There's plenty of people that will testify to that, not even CC. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope to see more of you guys here.
Thank you, Jonathan. And on my part, Spooky was a complete success. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. Whitney Science handed out 125 pounds of candy. That equates to about $600 worth of candy. I know the other people ran out. It was bigger than we anticipated. It was bigger than last year. It's getting to be a regular thing. So we appreciate everybody who showed up, and it was a wonderful night. So we thank you for that. On that note, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Kennedy Jenks, they did a great job in presentation, and of course staff for putting it all together. And I appreciate the few that actually stayed behind to watch what was going on. I also wanted to bring up that I am now meeting with Mendoza on a regular basis. So the people understand that every second Thursday of every month, I will meet with Mendoza, figure out what best suits Estacada as far as going forward with our officers and everything that may pertain to that. We just went through a situation which you've all heard about. The shooting that happened this last week was a rare incident. I've been assured that we are not in any danger, and that it was a circumstance which they're not willing to talk about at this time, but they're working on it very closely. So we'll get more information on as we move along. But I just want the people to know we are working diligently to get police services and security in this area to be able to handle whatever may come our way. So if that gives you some kind of security, I just want you to know about it. So I want to thank everybody for tonight. And then we are now going to go into executive session So I'm,
Did Counselor Hughes have anything to say? I keep
oh,
forgetting.
that's right. She's
up
on there. I thought she was sick, so I didn't know she was still there.
I know. Counselor Hughes, did you have any comments?
I really don't. Everybody already covered it. I just,
Okay.
yeah, have a safe and good holiday, everybody. And I just appreciate those who have watched online and those who came out tonight.
All right, thank you, Charity. All right, so that said, I will now read the executive session that I must read. The Escalade City Council will now meet in executive session. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192-660, which allows the council to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate property transactions. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All the members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed to report on any of the deliberations during, or not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of executive session, we will return to an open session and welcome the audience back in the room.
And I will call Counselor Hughes.
Beatty.
Okay.
That was a long time ago. Yeah. All right, so we're authorizing proceeding forward, so I'll need a motion on the floor.
I motion to continue with negotiation for the property.
Okay, I have a first, do I have a second?
Second.
First and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. And we are now going to adjourn this meeting. We've all spoke on our piece. And we hope you all have a nice evening and we'll see you next time around.